This conference will now be recorded.
Good morning, guys. Let's start the session. So in the last session, we discussed about we discussed about installing the Power BI desktop, and also we have seen the different components in the Power BI ecosystem, right? And also what are the different modules we're going to discuss in the codes, and also we discussed about the different license types we have in the Power BI, and also I've shown you how to install the Power BI desktop. So after installing the Power BI desktop, the Power BI desktop screen going to looks like this. So this is the home page of the Power BI desktop guys. In the Power BI desktop, you'll find out the different options here in the top. You're going to see the different options in the top here like this, right? So everything in the Power BI desktop begins with connecting to the data. To get the data into the Power BI desktop, here we have an option called as get data. So first of all, you might get one doubt. Why do we need data? And what is data? So here you might have two questions. What is data and why do we need data into the Power BI? So every day, whenever you are working with any project in the real time, for any project, you need to have the data to work in the Power BI. So first, let's understand what is data and why do we need the data. So any answers? What is data? What is data, guys? Any answers?
The data is which would be any form, it is structured or unstructured.
Okay, the
We are
data
using
would
that
be
data is that is daily transactional data. We
right.
can be used that might be stored as a files or database tables. We can
Okay,
drag that data as a input for our reports.
right. Let me
Data is
simplify
nothing
this.
but a
So
collection of information.
so collection of information. So it means is information and the data are those two same or different? So let me answer all those things. So what is data? So data is nothing but the collection of events and objects is called as the data. The collection of events and objects is known as the data, or anything which is understandable by the system is known as the data. So what exactly it means? So I'm having something like this. So let's say I'm having one, I'm having A, and then I'm having Power BI, and then I'm having two, I'm having B, again I'm having here Power BI, I'm having three C Power BI. So I'm having something like this. So here, what is one, what is A, what is Power BI, and what is here two B Power BI, what is three C Power BI here? So we can't tell exactly here what these numbers are, what exactly these numbers indicates, and even we can't tell exactly what here ABC is, and even we can't tell exactly what here Power BI indicates, right? So this is called as data, the stored representation of events and objects is known as the data. So here one can be an object, A can be an event, or in other words, anything which is understandable by the system is known as the data. So system can understand the data. System can understand the data, right? So then what is information? So humans can't understand the data, guys. So we can't understand what exactly these numbers are, these characters are, or what exactly here Power BI is, right? So then what is information? Meaningful data is called as the information. Meaningful data is called as the information. To this data, if we add something like this, so let's say here I'm adding SID, the student ID, student name, and here I'm adding the codes. If I add something like this, if I add something like this, so SID, SNAME, and the codes, right? So if I add something like this, then this is called as the information. Okay, so what exactly the information is? Meaningful data is called as the information, or anything which is understandable by the humans is known as the information. Humans can understand the information, guys. So now by seeing this 1 to 3, we can understand that the 1 to 3 indicates SIDs, means student IDs, because here we have definition to our data, right? So here what ABC indicates, here ABC indicates the student names. Here this ABC, it indicates the student names, and here Power BI indicates the codes. So anything which is understandable by the humans is known as the information, right? So here how we got meaning to our data, or meaningful data is called as information, right? How we got meaning to our data? We got meaning to our data after adding here this SID, SNAME, and codes. This SID, SNAME, and codes is known as the this SID, SNAME, and codes is known as the metadata. This SID, SNAME, and the codes is known as the metadata. This is called as metadata. This is called as the metadata, right? And below here, this numbers and this characters indicates the data. So the combination of metadata plus data, the combination of metadata plus data is called as information. So if we combine the metadata and data, that is called as the information. So data is different and the information is different. Now here what the Power BI going to understand? Does Power BI understands the data or Power BI understands the information? Power BI can understand both. Power BI can understand the data as well as Power BI can understand the information, right? So here the equation of the information is, if we combine both the metadata plus data, that is called as what? Information. Then what is metadata? How can we define the metadata? What metadata is doing? Metadata is just describing our data. So here SID, SNAME, and codes is known as the metadata. This metadata is describing our data. This SID column is describing that this column contains all student IDs. This SNAME column is describing here that this column contains all student names. This course column is describing that this column contains all the course information. So the descriptive information about the information system, the descriptive information about the information system and its contents will be defined by this metadata. So this is all about the data and the information. Then as the first question is what is data, here I have answered what is data. Then the second question here you might get is, why do we need data into the Power BI? Why do we need data into the Power BI means, again, that we have to discuss with a real life example so that you will understand in a better way. So let's discuss with a real life example. Why do we need data into the Power BI? Not only Power BI, any BI tool requires the data. So first of all, what is Power BI? What is Power BI? Power BI is a BI tool. Power BI is a BI tool. What is BI? BI stands for business
Business
intelligence.
intelligence.
So what exactly this business intelligence means? What exactly this business intelligence means? If you want to know what exactly this BI is, then you need to know with a real life example. So let me explain with a real life example. So let's take there is a bank. Let's say ICICI Bank is there. This ICICI Bank is operating in 3 countries. Let's say it's operating in India, it's operating in US, it's operating in UK. Now in in India, ICICI is having 1,000 branches. In US also, ICICI is having some 1,000 branches. In UK also, ICICI is having 1,000 branches. So across the 1,000 branches in India, let's say ICICI is having 1 crore customers. 1 crore customers. In US also, they are having 1 crore customers. In UK also, they are having 1 crore customers. In UK also, they are having 1 crore customers. So now, as we got 1 crore customers in India, so what everyday customers would do? Everyday customers would do the transactions. So on an average, one customer in India is doing one transaction per day. What about 1 crore customers then? One customer is doing 1 transaction per day. What about 1 crore customers? 1 crore customers are going to do
transactions.
1 crore transactions per day, right? What about per month?
30 crore.
30 crore.
In a month, they're going to do 30 crore transactions. So what every transaction contains? Every bank will
Data
get the
information.
revenue. Every bank will get the their revenue or their business from the transaction. So transaction is the source of revenue or source of business for any bank. Without the transactions, no bank going to survive. So here the transactions will be done by the customers. So the ICICI Bank is getting 30 crore transactions from India in a month. Similarly, from US also they have got 30 crore transactions. Similarly, in US also they got 30 crore transactions, and in UK also they got 30 crore transactions. Now, what the ICICI want to do is ICICI want to analyze their business. ICICI want to analyze their business for that month. In that month, they would like to see whether India have got more profit, or US got more profit, or UK got more profit, and also they would like to know, so in that 30 crore transactions, how many are debits, how many are credits, okay, and how much interest rate they have got from different loans, and how much interest rate they need to pay to the customers of saving accounts. So all these things they need to evaluate, they need to analyze, and finally they would like to see their profit and also the revenue. This is the requirement of the ICICI Bank. So here, as we're talking about the transactions, how the customers going to perform the transactions, guys? As we're talking about the transactions for every customer, so how the customers going to perform transactions?
Using ATM card.
So customers going to do transactions in different ways. They can go to bank directly, they can do the transaction, or they can use their mobile app and they can do the transaction, or even they can go to ATM and they can do the transaction. So I'm taking the most common method, ATM, right? So let's say there is one customer. There is one customer is doing transaction from someone ATM in Hyderabad. Okay. So there is one customer who is doing transaction from one ATM in Hyderabad. So if any customer is doing any transaction at any ATM, means what the user going to enter? Does the user going to enter the data or the user going to enter the information? Let's say here you are the customer, you are doing some transaction at some ATM in Hyderabad. At the time of doing the transaction, what you are going to enter? Are you going to enter the data or are you going to enter the information? So at the time of doing the transaction, what you are going to enter at the ATM level, you just enter the PIN number and the amount
Yeah.
which you want to withdraw, right? Just you will input what data, just will input the numbers. You won't input the metadata and data, right? You will just
Yeah.
input what? Only the data. You are inputting a system understands data. So anything which is understandable by the system is known as what? Data. So as a customer, you are inputting the data to the ATM. ATM is one system. So whenever the user is doing any transaction at any ATM level, that transactional data, request everyone to keep yourself in mute if you're not speaking. If any customer is doing any transaction at any ATM level, at the time of doing transaction, customer is entering the data. Whatever the data the customer is entering, that data going to get stored into one database that is called as OLTP. It will get stored into one transactional database. ATM, it won't store the transaction, guys. Whenever you do any transaction, ATM is just one front-end interface. ATM is just one front-end system. Okay, it will just allow you to enter the required details, but whatever the details you are entering, that details going to get stored into some database, some backend system. That database is called as the OLTP system. That database is called as the OLTP system. What is OLTP? OLTP stands for Online Transactional Processing System. OLTP stands for Online Transactional Processing System. It is mainly used to store the transactions. So if any customer is entering if any customer is doing any transactions from India, means all the Indian counterpart transactions going to get stored into the Indian OLTP. So have this OLTP in India. So as the ICICI is operating in 3 different countries, they're going to maintain different OLTPs in different countries. So this is from the Indian counterpart. In the similar way, let's say there is some other customer is doing some transaction from, let's say UK. So there is some customer who is doing some transaction from London. If any customer is doing any transaction from ATM in London, means, so whatever the transactions the customers are doing in that ATM, all those transactions going to get stored into the UK counterpart. Similarly, if any customer is doing any transaction from the US counterpart, means again all the US counterpart transactions going to get stored into the US OLTP. I'm just taking here, let's say some city. So let's assume that there is some customer who is doing some transaction from Texas, as Texas comes under the US. So all the US counterpart transactions going to get stored into this US OLTP. So how many transactions overall we're getting from India and how many transactions overall we're getting from UK? We're getting 30 crore transactions. So this OLTP contains 30 crore transactions from India, 30 crore transactions from UK, and 30 crore transactions from US, and 30 crore transactions from US. Now this 3 OLTPs contains the complete transactional data. Now what is the goal of the ICICI Bank? The goal of the ICICI Bank is they would like to analyze their business. They would like to measure their business. So the goal of the ICICI Bank means what? So who going to analyze that business? Who going to analyze their revenue? So the goal of the ICICI Bank means this ICICI Bank contains some group of people. They're called as the management. Okay, so the leaders or the management people going to analyze the business. It means again some group of people will see the numbers. So as again some persons going to the business. So what the humans going to understand? Does humans going to understand the data or information? Does humans understands the data, guys? No, right? Humans cannot understand the data. What humans going to understand?
Information.
Anything which is understandable by the humans is known as what? Information. We can't understand the data in the proper way, but we can understand the information. Right. So now here to this extent what we are having here 30 crore transactional data from India, 30 crore transactional data from UK, and 30 crore transactional data from US. We got the transactional data. So as they would like to analyze, it means as the humans would like to see here again the data, or they would like to analyze their business, they can't understand this data. Now we need to convert this data into the information. And also, if any customer is doing any transaction from India, means in which currency indicator the transaction going to get stored? Any transaction in India will get
UPC.
stored in the form of INR, and any transaction in UK will come in the form of pounds, in the form of ZBP, and any transaction in US will come in the form of dollars, USD, right? So we got the transactional data in the different formats. As we got the transactional data in the different formats, the question is, can we compare data like this? You want to compare, let's say, let me simplify this case. You would like to compare the two persons' height. This two persons' height you would like to compare. Let's say for the first person, the height you have taken in terms of centimeters. So let's say you measured his height and his height is 175 centimeters. For second person, let's say the height you have taken in terms of feet. The height is, let's say, 5 feet 9 inches. And which person height is more here? Is the first person height is more or second person height is more? We cannot tell exactly, right? Because the reason why we can't tell here is we are comparing the two persons height with two different units. For the first person you have taken in terms of centimeters, and second person you have taken in terms of feet. If we take two different units to compare means, then we cannot compare it in the proper way. Then what is the best way to compare? Either we need to convert the two persons height to centimeters or two persons height to feet. Then we could able to compare. So let's say the second person height also we are taken in terms of centimeters. Second person height is let's say 170 centimeters. Now in this case, we could able to tell that the first person height is more. Similarly, as here we're comparing the revenue from India, US and UK, we are taking here three different units. We're taking here INR, we're taking here ZBP, and also we're taking here USD. We're taking three different units to compare. If we take three different units to compare, then we cannot compare it in the proper way. So we need to convert all the transactions into one format. So one global principle is if we're comparing any objects in the world, the comparison unit should be the same. So here again, we need to convert the rupees and pounds and dollars to one single format. So what ICICI want to do is at the end of the day, they would like to compare everything in terms of dollars, in terms of the dollars. So it means we need to convert the rupees and pounds to the dollars. So how to convert that rupees and pounds to the dollars? So how to convert that rupees and pounds to the dollars is here where again we have to use one more mechanism called as ETL. So to convert data into information and to transform the data and to transform the different formats into one single format, we are going to use the ETL. What is ETL? In ETL, E stands for extraction, T stands for transformation, and L stands for loading. In ETL, E stands for extraction, T stands for transformation, and L stands for loading. Okay. So what the ETL gonna do is, just going to extract the data. The first step is extraction. It's just going to extract the data. Extraction means collecting the data. It's just going to collect the data from the different locations, from different sources. So the process of collecting the data is called as extraction. The process of collecting the data is called as the extraction. So after extracting the data from the different sources, it's just going to keep that data into one temporary location called as the staging area. Just going to keep the data into the staging area. Why it's just going to keep the data into the staging area is to perform the transformations. In ETL, T stands for transformation. What is a transformation? Transformation means converting the data from different formats into one single format. Converting the data from different formats into one single format is called as the transformation. So here where we need to convert, here where we are going to convert the data into information. Here where we are going to convert the rupees and pounds to the dollars. So the INR and GBP here where we are going to convert to the dollars USD. So ETL is one mechanism, guys. ETL is one process. So after extracting the data, it's just going to do all the transformations. After doing all the transformations, we are going to store them permanently. We are going to store them permanently into the data warehouse. So in ETL, L stands for loading. Of transforming the data. After transforming the data, we are going to load the data into the. After transforming the data, we are going to load the data into the data warehouse. So in ETL, L stands for loading. So we are going to load the data into our data warehouse. So our data warehouse contains the information from US, UK, and India. And we got all the transactions in the form of USD. And here we got all the transactions in the form of the USD. Okay. Perfect. So now here where we got altogether 90 crore transactional information. And we got 90 crore transactional information in the form of USD. So as we got now here information, what humans could understand information, and also here we got the complete information in the form of USD. Now the humans going to understand what? The humans going to understand the information. But the question is, can they able to directly analyze the 90 crore transactional information manually? So as we got the 30 crore from India, US and UK. So we transformed that into proper format, and here we got into our data warehouse. And as we got it in one single format, now the humans going to understand that. The question is, can they able to understand that information here manually? Can they compare that information manually? No, they cannot compare that information manually. Then how to analyze this 90 crore transaction information? How to analyze is here where Power BI will comes into picture. Here where Power BI will comes into picture. Now what the Power BI would do is, Power BI going to connect to this. Now what the Power BI going to do is Power BI going to connect now to this information in the data warehouse. After connecting to that information, Power BI going to connect to that information. After connecting to that information, now here Power BI going to do two things. Now here Power BI going to do two things. The first is what the Power BI going to do is the Power BI just going to do the reporting and Power BI going to do the analysis. So after connecting to that information in the data warehouse, now Power BI going to do here two things. One is the reporting and other one is the analysis. So what is the meaning of reporting? So extracting the required knowledge from our information is called as the reporting. Extracting the required knowledge from the information is called as the reporting. For example, as we got the total revenue, as we got total information from the 3 different locations, let's say the ICICI management want to know the top 10 branches in India. So how to extract the top 10 branches in India? To get the top 10 branches, what we need to get the top 10 branches, we need to just query the total information we have from India and we need to get those top 10 branches. Similarly, they would like to see the top 10 branches from US. And also they would like to see the top 10 branches from UK. Okay, they would like to see the top 10 branches from UK, right? If you would like to see the data like this, so in order to see the data, we need to extract that required information or we need to get the required knowledge from our information. So how we are going to extract that required information or required knowledge is by creating various reports. We're going to create reports and we're going to extract that. So not only that, let's say I would like to know the total revenue of the ICICI. How to get total revenue? Total revenue means the combined revenue from all the 3 locations, or the total profits or the total loss. So this kind of extracting the knowledge from our information is called as reporting. We're going to create various reports and we are going to extract the required information. And what is the meaning of analysis? Comparing the business across multiple locations is called as analysis, guys. Comparing the business across multiple locations is called as the analysis. So for example, in this case, let's say I would like to know what is the revenue from India, what is the revenue from US, what is the revenue from UK, and what is the variance if we compare India with the UK, and also what is the variance if we compare India with the US. So I would like to know the variance. So how to know that? Let's say the total revenue we got from India is, let's say, some $5 million, 5 million USD from India. And the total revenue we got from US is 6 million USD from US. And from UK, let's say we got 4 million USD. So what is the variance if we compare India with US? In India, if we compare India with US, in India we got 1 million less. Because in US we got 6 million, so in India we got 1 million less. So 1 million less, right? If we compare India with US, and if we compare India with UK, in India we got 1 million more. So like this, if we compare the business across the multiple locations, this is called as the analysis. Every day in Power BI, what we are going to do is, in Power BI, we are going to connect to our information, and after connecting to our information, we are going to perform the reporting and we are going to perform the analysis. That's the reason in Power BI, the first thing what we need to do is we are going to use get data. Using get data, we are going to connect to the information, or we're going to connect to the data warehouse. and after connecting to the data warehouse, we're going to create the reporting and the analysis, right? So after creating the reporting and analysis, so who going to use that reports or who going to use that analysis? So who is going to use that reports or who is going to
Management
use that
members.
analysis? So the
Clients.
ICICI management, the ICICI management going to use this reports. What this reports contains? What this reports contains? Reports contains what? Information. Does humans going to understand the information or not? So this reporting or analysis we got from the information, right? What humans going to understand? Information. So if you see the whole process here, at one end, what is happening? At one end here, so some group of persons, again the humans are giving the input. At one end, the humans are giving here the input, and at the other end, whatever the input these humans are providing will be analyzing by again some group of people, some group of humans here, right? So they are analyzing here that information. So in between two persons or in between two people, all these things are happening. But the context of the human is different here. These people are called as customers. These people are called as customers. And these people are called as what? Management. Management, right? In between the people and in between the management, all these things are happening. This complete end-to-end mechanism is called as the data warehousing architecture. This complete end-to-end mechanism is called as the end-to-end mechanism is called as the data warehousing architecture. In real time, from here to here, the work will be done by. In real time, from here to here, the work will be done by the ETL teams or ELT teams. And from here to here, the work will be done by the BI teams. So the different BI tools available in the market are, we're having Power BI, we're having Tableau, we're having Qlik, etc. And the different ETL tools available in the market are, we're having Azure Data Factory, we're having Talent, we're having ODI, etc. All these are the different ETL tools. So the data warehouse is the combination of, data warehouse is the combination of ETL plus BI. Data warehouse is the combination of ETL plus BI. Okay, so Power BI is one data warehousing tool. Power BI is one BI tool. There are so many BI tools, guys. And one really good thing with the Power BI is Power BI is having its own ETL tool as well. Power BI is having its own ETL tool as well. That ETL tool is called as Power Query. That ETL tool is called as Power Query. So one common question here for everyone is, or one common question in the interviews is, can Power BI connects to the OLTP systems or not? What the OLTP systems contains? What does this OLTP systems contains? Data, transactional data. That data we need to transform to the information, right? So can Power BI directly connect to the OLTP system, and can Power BI do the transactions by its own or not? Yes. The answer is yes. Power BI can do that. Power BI can do that. So most of the times Power BI would connect to the information, but in some cases the data is not transformed. Even Power BI can connect to the OLTP systems as well. So my first question is that only, what does the Power BI understand? Does Power BI understands the data or Power BI understands the information? I said both, right? So where do the Power BI gets the input as the data is if Power BI needs to connect to the OLTP systems. OLTP systems contains the transactional data. So when we connect to any transactional data, we need to transform the data. So where we need to transform the data is in the Power Query. Let me show you how exactly it looks. So here in the Power BI, whenever you click on get data, we have so many options, right? So let's say I would like to connect to some web data. Even you also can connect to the web data. So I'm just connecting to the IPL data, guys. So just open Google, just look for IPL stats. I'm just opening the Google, and in the Google, I'm just looking for IPL stats. When you open IPL stats, it will open some web links. Just click on the first web link. Just click on the first web link, the IPL official page. In the IPL official page, so here we got different tabs: matches, videos, stats, points table. Just switch to the points table. Once we switch to the points table, so here we have got the points table. It's just showing here all zeros. Just go to the filter here. So I'm just looking for IPL 2022 season. In IPL 2022 season, here we got the table. So I'm just, as in IPL 2022, we have done with all the matches. So it's just giving us like which team has won how many matches. The complete information here we could see. Now I would like to connect to this data from the Power BI. So how to connect to this data? Just simply copy the URL. Copy this URL. After copying the URL, then just go back to the Power BI. In the Power BI, when you click on get data, it's showing us different options. Here we have an option called as web. This web option is used to connect to the web data. It's a web connector. Just click on here web. Once you click on here web, it is asking us the URL. I'm just pasting that URL and then I'm clicking on OK. So now it's connecting to that web data, guys. So whatever the web data we are having, now Power BI has connected to the web URL, and here we got the tables. When you click on the table one, the table one is showing here that information only. So whatever the information we have in the specific table, the same information we're seeing in this table one. So here it's showing list of different tables, but I need only table one. Just select that table one, tick that table one. When you click that table one, Power BI is showing here two options. One is load. Load means it will load this data completely into the Power BI. Second one is transform data. We can transform the data as well. So where we can transform this data is in the Power Query. So Power BI is having its own ETL tool called as Power Query. Let me click on here. Once I click on here, transform data. Now the transform data opens the Power Query. See here. Now the screen here, what you're seeing is called as the Power Query, guys. Now the screen here, what you're seeing is called as the Power Query. So Power Query is the ETL tool built inside the Power BI. Power Query is the ETL tool built inside the Power BI. So here we can do different types of transformations. If you go to transform tab here, it will show us the different types of transformations we're having in the Power BI. So we have different options here. You will come to know all these options in the module 1. Our module 1 is in our course, our module 1 is data preparation. This complete data preparation we are going to do in the Power Query, right? So in this example, let's say here I have few columns which I don't want. This ABC column I don't want, just contains some numbers. I want to remove this. Just right clicking on that column and then I'm just clicking on here remove. Then here I'm having the team I need the played, won, lost, right? And I don't want this tied column. I don't want this NR, so we can just remove that. Just we can select those columns using control button and we can right click here and just we can click on here remove columns. And I don't want this for and against columns as well. So just using control button in our keyboard, press the control button, select those columns, right click and click on remove columns. And I don't want this column as well. I'm just removing this. So what I did is I just performed some basic transformations of removing the unnecessary columns. Then we're good to go. My data is looking good now. I did some basic transformations. Right after doing the transformations, so now here we need to analyze this. We need to report this. In order to do that, in the we need to load this data into the Power BI. How to load this data into the Power BI is in Power BI. Here we are having an option called as close and apply. In Power BI, here we're having an option called as close and apply. Once I click on close and apply, now what here Power BI will do is it will close this Power Query.
Professor, 1 second. Yeah. In the first class, you said like all the steps will be recorded here. So on the right side, I can only see remove columns only for one time. Why is that? Like we have removed columns like multiple times. Are they all clubbed together or?
Exactly. So that step is the
Okay,
same
okay.
step, right?
Okay. So they are all clubbed together. Okay, got it.
Yeah. So now you can see the data is loading. Okay, see here. So now the data got transformed and we could see here the transformed data in the Power BI and then we could analyze this. So the point is the Power BI is having its own ETL tool that is called as the Power Query. So this combined architecture is called as the data warehousing architecture, guys. So what are the components of the data warehouse? So one of the important interview questions is explain the data warehousing architecture. So if you get this question, you have to explain by taking one example like this. So the data warehouse, it primarily contains 5 components, guys. The 5 components are: number 1, the first component is the OLTP. Data warehouse primarily contains 5 components, and that the first component is the OLTP. The second component is the ETL. Third component is the staging area. Fourth component is the data warehouse, and fifth component is the BI. So the five components in the data warehouse are the first component is the OLTP. The second component is the ETL. The third component is the staging area where we are going to do all the transformations. The fourth component is the data warehouse. This data warehouse is also called as OLAP, guys. We're going to call it as the OLAP. OLAP stands for Online Analytical Processing System. Why it is called as the OLAP is this data warehouse provides the required information to perform the analysis. As the data warehouse is providing the required information to perform the analysis, this is also called as the OLAP system. Right? These five are the components. And here also one very important interview question is difference between OLTP and OLAP. What are the differences between the OLTP and the OLAP? This is one of the frequently asking interview questions. Now let's talk about that as well. So what is the purpose of the OLTP, guys? What is the main purpose of OLTP?
To store the data.
To store the daily transactions, sir.
The main purpose of OLTP is to run the business. To run the business, we need to store transactions somewhere, right? So everyday business transactions are getting stored into the OLTP, right? So to run our business, we need to have some location where we can store them. That is providing by the OLTP. And what the data warehouse or OLAP is doing, what is the purpose? To analyze our business, we need to store that information somewhere. So the main purpose of the OLAP is to analyze the business. Right? And number two, amount of data. Does OLTP contains more amount of data or OLAP contains more amount of data?
OLAP, sir.
So here what we are doing, so whatever the data we have in the different OLTP systems that we are dumping into the data warehouse, right? So always the data warehouse contains more amount of information or huge amounts of information. So OLTP contains less amount of data and the OLAP contains huge amounts of information. Number three, processing speed. Is OLTP faster or OLAP faster? If you're doing any transaction at any ATM means how much time the transaction will take is less than a minute or 2 to 3 minutes, not more than that. But if you want your bank statement for last 5 years means how much time it will take? Can you get your last 5 years bank statement instantly? No, right? You have to raise a request to your branch. What the branch says is we need 1 week time to give you the last 5 years statement, because if you want to get the historical information, it will take some time. So the processing speed is high or very good. What about OLAP? It is considerably slower due to huge amounts of information. Okay. Next, data storage. Is the OLTP storing the data permanently? Is the OLTP is storing the data here permanently? No. OLTP is just a
Temporary.
short. Yeah, OLTP is just a short gap fill-in, guys. OLTP it will never ever stores the information or the data permanently. It's just a temporary storage. What about data warehouse? It's the permanent storage. It's the permanent storage. So it's the temporary storage. What about OLAP? OLAP is the permanent storage. Next, access. Who going to access the OLTP? So who going to access the OLTP?
ETL teams.
Any customer. So here, let's assume that you are the customer. You are the customer. You are doing some transaction. Whenever you do the transaction, the transaction is automatically storing to where? The transaction system, right? It means you can directly access the transactional system. You means what? Customer. Any customer can access the transactional system. So if you want to see your bank account balance, or if you want to see your salary statement, means you will just log into your bank account, right? So from your mobile or from your laptop, you will, or from the ATM, you will just log into your bank account. What the ATM is doing? ATM is not storing any information. ATM is retrieving that information from the transactional system. So anyone can access the transaction system, but who can access the analytical system, or who can access the data warehouse? So as a customer of the ICICI Bank, can you access all the customers' information? This data warehouse contains all the customers' information. So can you access all the customers' information? Is that possible? No, never. So who can access the complete information, or who can access the complete data warehouse? Only the authorized team. Only the management can access the data warehouse, right? So who can access the OLTP? Any customer. Who can access the OLAP? Only the authorized team. Only the authorized teams can access the OLAP. And number 6, source of data. From where the data is coming into the OLTP? From where the data is coming into the OLTP? So in this example, from where the data is coming into the OLTP? From the ATM. From the ATM, the data is coming into the OLTP, right? So what is ATM? ATM is one user interface. So not only ATM, from your mobile banking or from your internet banking, if you do the transaction, again that data will be storing into OLTP. So any UI, any user interface, any UI, any user interface is the source of data for the OLTP. What is the source of data for OLAP or for the data warehouse? From where the data is coming into the data warehouse, guys? So
Staging
from the
area.
staging area, from where the data is coming into the staging area, from the OLTPs. So all OLTPs are feeding the data warehouse. All OLTPs are feeding your OLAP system. So OLTPs. So from where the data is coming into the OLAP is from the OLTPs. And next is the database size. To test your experience in the interviews, you might get this question. What is the database size of your OLTP system? What is the database size of your OLAP system? So as both are storing the data, what would be the size or the ideal size of the OLTP systems? So as the OLTPs are just the short gap fill-ins, as we don't store the data permanently, mostly in most of the projects, the OLTPs are configured up to 500 GB, not more than that. 500 GB is right. So most of the OLTP size would be limited to 500 GB. Then what about the size of the OLAP? As nowadays we're getting huge amounts of data huge amounts of data depending on the domain you are working. If you're working in the financial domain or banking domain or retail domain, they used to get lot of data, so they need more storage. If you're working in healthcare domain, they don't need that much storage. So I'm giving in general the highest figure. We are going to configure OLTPs up to 2 petabytes, up to 2 pp, 2 petabytes. What is a petabyte? 1 petabyte equals to 1024 terabytes. 1 petabyte equals to 1024 terabytes. What is 1 terabyte? So 1 terabyte equals to 1024 gigabytes, 1024 GB. So can we configure 2 petabytes into one single system? Never, it's not possible. We cannot configure this 2 petabytes into one single system. What we are going to do is we are going to take like 0.5 PB in one system, and again the 0.5 PB in the other system. Okay, it means the 0.5 PB is the data warehouse 1, and the 0.5 PB is the data warehouse 2. And again here we're going to take 0.5 PB, the data warehouse 3. And again 0.5 PB in the warehouse 4. There's 4 different data warehouses. We're going to combine together into one single enterprise data warehouse. This complete system is called as the enterprise data warehouse or big data system. EDW means enterprise data warehouse or big data system. The big data is nothing but the integration of the combination of different data warehouses together. Nowadays we're using that fancy word big data or enterprise warehouse. It's nothing but the combination or the integration of different warehouses together, right? So this is all about the differences between OLTP and OLAP. We have few more things. I'll continue in the tomorrow session. I'm not giving any of these points guys because all these are part of the notes. Let me show you the notes. Yeah, see all of you. So this is the notes which you are going to get. Is my screen visible to you guys?
No.
Yes, sir.
Okay, let me share it again. Yeah, see it. So this is the note which you're going to get. So here you can find everything, right? So what is data, what is information, metadata, data warehousing architecture, right? You'll come to know all these things. And the different components which we discussed here, it's part of the notes. Okay, and Power BI desktop installation, which we discussed yesterday. The steps of how to download it, everything is there in the notes. Okay. So we have a few more things are there. We'll continue tomorrow's session, guys. Any questions on today's session?
No, Praswal. Regarding that screen size, I guess I checked, like I googled about it, and it seems that's the issue with the GoToMeetings. I think it's because of the newer version. The UI is like that. It's not the screen size like resolution. Uh, Dilip, could you like as soon as the class ends, can you share the recordings, because like it is like the full screen isn't really the full screen. Like if you share the recording, like we can go through like.
Yeah, I mean, like definitely the recording. It might take some time, like 1 to 2 hours, to get the recording link.
Yeah, like yeah,
So
maybe
the
1 to 2 hours
recording
is
link,
also fine.
once we share it to you, even you can download that as well. Yeah.
Hey, Mr. Dev, good afternoon. Lakshman Asma here, and this is my first class, first time. And see, may I know what is the tentative timeline of this session for 3 months or 4 months, and every day it is 1 hour. It takes more than 1 hour normally.
So the total time is 3 months, and every day it's 1 hour, and weekends it will be like 1.5 to 2 hours.
Okay, because it is in the mid of office hours, right? That is my concern here. Uh, is there any possibilities for having a different timings? Is it possible?
No, at present we have only this timing
Time,
available.
right? Yeah, because I need to take permission otherwise. If it's a maybe short-term course, 1 week or 2 week, I can manage without no intimation to management. Say if it is 3 months, it takes more than 1 hour, means I need to inform them, right? Because I'm doing this training during my working hours.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks. I noted.
Sure.
Yeah. And what is the maximum number of candidates here in this course? Maximum 20, 25, 30, 50 like that? Any idea?
It depends. The minimum is like 30.
Okay. Because if we have more people, right, if any doubts, it is very difficult for us to get clarify.
No, you can ask the questions directly in the class, or even we have a WhatsApp group. You can just post your questions in the group as well.
Okay, fine. Yeah, thanks. Noted. Thank you.
Okay, solid then. We'll meet tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.